Electricity is not a basic necessity, but we've become so dependent upon it for our basic necessities that it might as well be. And in day 18 of the 521 Preparedness Plan, you'll get cheap and easy options for powering small devices, as well as some more substantial options for larger needs when the power grid is down.
The first thing you're going to need to do is to identify any battery-powered devices that you're going to want to have during a disaster or an emergency. For example, flashlights, your cell phone to communicate, or maybe some two-way radios. Also, look around the room and identify any corded devices you might need. For example, your refrigerator, maybe an oxygen concentrator, or your Starlink. Once you've identified the kinds of devices that need to be powered, now you need to start making a game plan. Step one is make sure that you have whatever batteries that you need to power things like your flashlights, your two-way radios, or any other devices that you want. Also, another option is small battery packs are great for recharging things like your phone. You can just plug it in like that, and bingo, you've got a phone charging. Also, there's some really neat options with solar lanterns. This is one that we have, and you can plug your cell phone in right here and charge your phone just using the sun to recharge the battery and the light. There are also hand crank versions where you can generate some more power by cranking it with your hand.
If you have larger power needs, many folks think that a portable solar generator is the answer to all their problems, and it could be, but I want to run through a little math with you. Let's say that you are wanting to power a refrigerator, and that refrigerator is using 1.5 kilowatt hours per day. So let's say that you get a portable solar generator that says it's a 2 kilowatt hour unit and has 400 watts of solar, like this Jackery. So on a perfect day, those 400 watts of solar would produce maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 watts when it's perfectly sunny in the middle of the day for a couple of hours. And then during the hours before and after in the morning and evening, it'll produce even less than that. So maybe when it's sunny, you might possibly get to the 1.5 kilowatt hours of power usage that fridge consumes, but that's assuming that it's perfectly sunny every single day. What happens when it's cloudy for a day or two or three? So as you can see, it takes a sizable battery bank and solar array to reliably power sizable loads like this. And so therefore, I highly recommend that you start with a fuel-powered generator as your first step if you have anything more than just tiny loads. Here we are out in the generator shed. As you can tell, I like Honda, always have, probably always will, but there's other good makes out there. One thing I will say is with Honda in particular, you'll often see at the big box stores, they'll have a Honda generator, quote unquote. It really only has a Honda engine. Everything else is some other no name. And those are not necessarily the same level of quality. But Yamaha is good. Generac has some good stuff, some not so good stuff, just depends. When you're deciding what size you need, what I would say is figure out what is the largest item that you need to power. And if the largest item you need to power doesn't use a whole lot of power at one time, then go with a smaller generator. For instance, if all you need to power is a refrigerator, they don't use a lot of power at one time. They might use 300-400 watts plus or minus at one time. And so you could do just fine with a 1,000 watt generator. So something like that, go with the Honda EU 1000 and it'll run for hours and hours on just a gallon of gas. And whereas a larger generator like this is not going to run nearly as long on a gallon of gas. But if you are needing to run something big, like for instance a well pump, that's a really common item that folks are wanting to power with their generator. Well pump is going to require, in most cases, a sizable generator, bigger than a 1,000 and usually bigger than a 2,000 watt generator. Here's a chart from Franklin Pumps that gives their recommendations on what size of generator you might need for different sizes of pumps. But one thing I will say is with a larger generator, you might consider going with propane as your fuel source because delivery is already taken care of. If you have a big tank there and you're already using propane, That's going to be super simple. And also propane never goes bad.
For powering your entire home off-grid like we do with a renewable solar system, it will take a substantial system. And while the cost may not be as high as you think, it's still beyond the scope of this 521 series. On day 21, we'll be pointing you to some resources for further learning about things like this. And for links and more details, be sure to visit the 521 resources page at thereadylife.com/521. And we will see you tomorrow on the next day of 521 Preparedness Plan.